Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Sportscast with your hosts, Jake Gould and Brandon Skinner. This week we'll be discussing the NBA Finals, LeBron's Decision 3, and of course our weekly Jags Corner.
This week's episode is sponsored by J.R. Smith's Liquor Store. Let's get into it.
Who are you without CO2? Just another dude with a bunch of tattoos. You ain't got no shoe, Nike wins, Coos lose.
Our intro music of the meet is brought to you by Lonzo Ball, who recently released his new single, Kylie Kuzma, dissing his teammate Kyle Kuzma. Now, for our few and many podcast listeners, I'd like to apologize for the late recording. I'm in Atlanta right now, going to see my Mets take on our division rival Atlanta Braves in 2 games tonight. But we're not about that, right? We're not talking baseball right now. We're talking the NBA Finals.
Of course,
Brandon,
of course.
it was Braun's second sweep.
Yeah, I know. We all know the Warriors, the super team, the Warriors dynasty swept LeBron James's Cavaliers 4-0, and just disrespected LeBron James. It's only his second time he's been swept in the finals. Both times he was with the Cavaliers, and even though he allegedly played with a broken hand, it's just embarrassing to get swept like that. You could just tell throughout most of the series, especially after that Game 1 defeat, that the whole Cavaliers team sort of gave up. They realized that it was nearly impossible for them to beat this Warriors team, and it was basically all on LeBron's shoulders to even do anything, and it really showed. He had no help, and it showed they got swept, so yeah, not a good thing.
Well, of course, as you mentioned, it was revealed before Game 4 that LeBron was playing with a broken hand, that he suffered punching a whiteboard after Game 1. My guess is that he was trying to punch J.R. Smith and missed and hit the whiteboard. But that'll be up to discussion for years to come, just like was the flu game a hangover game or whatnot. But yeah, after that just unacceptable, horrific, all the negative adjectives you can describe about that Game 1 loss, that we all knew the Cavaliers had no chance. We knew the Cavs had no chance from the beginning. And, I mean, you can attribute the loss first and foremost to just playing against 4 All-Stars, 2 perennial MVPs, but also because of the Cavs role players that were touted at their highs and dissed on their lows disappeared. Kyle Korver, who was a confident player for the Cavs throughout the playoffs, did not do anything throughout the conference finals and the NBA finals. Larry Nance, our boy who we loved a lot, also disappeared throughout the finals. That's probably just due to the greater talent he was playing against and whatnot. J.R. Smith, besides that incident, only scored 10 points. You can't do that as a shooting guard in a finals game.
Yeah.
Kevin Love did a lot better than people was credited for, and he's been saying that he wants to play with LeBron for the rest of his career and stay in Cleveland. But I'm telling him, pick one, because LeBron's not staying in Cleveland.
Yeah, Kevin Love, he's an interesting player. In Minnesota, where he was before in Cleveland, he was forced to be the number 1 scoring option for a really bad team, or a pretty bad team, Minnesota Timberwolves team. A bad team. And he seemed to thrive in that role of being a good player, the best player on a bad team. But at this point in his career, with his role now, at this point in his career, as I said, he's not good enough to be the number 2 option on a championship level team. And that showed this year throughout the whole playoffs. These finals, he played pretty well. He got his 20 and 10, and he played all right, but I feel like the Cavaliers are relying on him too much. They're paying him too much for what he's worth. Now, just like in, I think it was 2016, when LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love came back from 3-1 down against the Warriors, that was perfect for Kevin Love because he was the number 3 option, and he wasn't relied on so heavily as he is now. And with him in this position, with LeBron James as the second best player on their team, he really got exposed and his weaknesses got shown. And even though he didn't play bad per se, he didn't play up to the level that needed for them to beat the Warriors, obviously. So
Well, part of the problem with Kevin Love's role usage on the Cavaliers this year is that they turned him into just like they didn't play towards his strength, which was in Minnesota. He had Ricky Rubio just constantly giving him the ball, and Kevin Love was able to work some magic in the paint.
Yeah.
But in Cleveland, especially this year, he was relegated to just another guy that LeBron passed the ball to after Braun dropped in the defense. Which, I mean, Kevin Love can shoot a three, but he's not a guy that just shoots threes and boards. I mean, in Minnesota, he was a beast. He was a monster in the paint. The paint was his. Just like how I play on the court. He was like me on the court. But in all seriousness, Kevin Love wasn't in the 2016 finals, like you were mentioning. Since Kevin Love was the third option on that team, and Kyrie was a shooter, Kevin Love was able to play more to his strengths in the paint and doing more in the mid range. But this year in the Cavs, since he was the second best player on a very bad team, he was forced to just shoot threes for LeBron and get the rebound and just give it back to him immediately. And that obviously did not pay out for the Cavs. Yeah.
Kevin Love, I think when he was on Minnesota, he looked bigger. I think in these years on his Cavaliers, he's gotten smaller, actually, like just physically smaller. I think he's lost weight or something, and he's really
he was fat. Yeah,
he was a bigger man.
He was thick on the Timbs.
Because he's not that tall, if I'm not mistaken. He's probably like 6'8", 6'9". How tall is he?
Yeah.
So he's not like
6'9".
6'9" is, I mean, which is a huge man, but it's not like really big to play.
In the NBA, that's small.
Yeah, in the NBA, that's not exactly a big guy to be playing in the paint. And so in Minnesota, he was a lot bigger and bulkier, and he could move guys in the paint, and he could get those crafty points. But now he's sort of forced himself and his body to fit into that three-point shooter role, and I think it's hurt him a lot because he's lost a lot of the ability that he earlier had in his career to bully people in the paint and to get those fouls in the paint and to get those shots, those close-range shots, and he's forced himself to become almost exclusively outside shooter, which, again, is not good for him or the Cavaliers.
Yeah, the Cavaliers just tried to mold this team on LeBron and a bunch of guys that could shoot threes and get rebounds. And that works sometimes. That got them to the finals, but that did not work against the Warriors, who are a much smarter team than that.
Yeah.
They played a lot better than the Cavaliers.
Yeah. So, Jake, I know we're kind of pooping on this year's Cavaliers. I mean, they did get to the finals and everything. Let me ask you a question. We talked about earlier that LeBron has only been swept twice in his career in the finals, in 2007 and in this year in 2018. So let me ask a question. Is this year's 2018 Cleveland Cavaliers better or worse than those 2007 Cleveland Cavaliers that LeBron carried to the NBA Finals?
It's better almost exclusively because of Kevin Love.
Okay.
That 07 Cavs team was atrocious. They had a bunch of wash-ups, guys with names you can't pronounce, which is not really good unless you're Giannis.
Yeah.
And that team was worse coached than this team. Can you believe it or not? Tyronn Lue did better than Mike Brown on that year.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you can even say that about a team. Tyronn Lue is not the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron James is the coach, the best player, the GM, and he's the leader of that whole Cleveland Cavaliers franchise. But yeah, I do agree with you. This 2018 Cavaliers team is a lot better than that 2017 that LeBron put on their back and carried to the finals that got swept by the Spurs.
Well, part of the reason that LeBron was able to get swept was because he carried that horrendous team in a weak Eastern Conference at the time. And in this year, we can see the difference is that LeBron has a little better team, a little more established people like Love and Korver.
Yeah.
And LeBron's better. I think this might have been the best season of basketball LeBron James has ever played, even if he doesn't win the MVP.
Yeah, LeBron, as we know, he wasn't the best three-point shooter in his earlier career. And in these past several seasons, especially this year, you've seen that in the playoffs and in the regular season, he's become a lot more reliant on that three-point shot. Not because he can't drive all the time and score, because if LeBron wanted to, he could drive every single play and he's just so big and fast and athletic that he could either get a foul or get a basket on every single play.
But he gets so damn tired.
He gets so tired, and he breaks his hand and stuff like that. And so as he's gotten older, he hasn't slowed down, but he's just shifted his game to shooting more outside shots where he doesn't have to run as much, doesn't have to get hit as much. And so yeah, he's that's what he's done. And like you said, in 2007, LeBron carried a weak team through the Eastern Conference, and that's basically been his whole career, wouldn't you say?
Well, he defend off the Celtics a couple of times. He defend off Reggie Miller's Pacers.
Reggie Miller's overrated. Don't worry about that. Okay.
But yeah, the Eastern Conference has been weaker for eternity.
Yeah, I do.
Part of that is due because of them accepting more of the ABA teams in the 70s, like my New Jersey Nets.
Okay.
But since you were talking to me about the comparisons between the 07 Cavs and the 18 Cavs, Brandon, talk to me about the comparisons between the 2018 Warriors and the 2007 Spurs.
Oh wow, that's a good question. The 2007 Spurs, obviously they swept LeBron just as these 2018 Warriors did. The 2007 Spurs were coached by Greg Popovich, obviously, and they had the big three of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili when they were more in their primes. And again, it was a very similar situation as this year was, where a weak team carried by LeBron got to the finals, and then the better overall team in the West smacked them and swept them. But I think this year's Warriors team is a lot more offensively gifted than that San Antonio Spurs team was. I mean, they have two of probably the top 5 offensive players in the game at this time, being Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, and obviously with Klay Thompson, who's no slouch, and Draymond Green, who just does everything and more for that team. And so they're very good, obviously, as they won the title. But the San Antonio Spurs played a simpler style of basketball with Greg Popovich's coaching. They played a lot more just fundamental and steady basketball, and they played good defense. Tony Parker is one of my personal favorite players. He plays a very good point guard. He is very just solid. He can score a little bit, he can pass a little bit, and he plays solid defense. And of course, the big fundamental Tim Duncan was in his prime back then. And so yeah, I think this Warriors team is probably better than that San Antonio Spurs team, but they're still very similar teams, and both obviously ended up winning a championship, so they're pretty good.
Correct. Both were coached better than their Cavaliers counterpart.
Yes.
Better coaching leads to better defense. But I mean, there's no comparison between Pop and Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
Also interesting to note that this Spurs team was the first super team before super teams existed.
That's not
with
true.
With that big three, as you mentioned, of Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan.
Now, Jake, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there. I think the first super team.
Oh wow.
I think the first super team was Michael Jordan's Bulls in the 90s when he paired up with him, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman, and the aforementioned Steve Kerr, the sniper from three-point range.
After he played baseball.
After he played baseball, but that was still a really good super team. There was the three of the premier players in the league at that time, and it's no secret that good NBA players and good players in any sport want to play with other good players in that same sport, and so super teams have been around forever, I think, but the first real highlighted and premier super team was those 90s Bulls.
Well, it depends on how you classify a super team. Because if a super team is just a team with really good players, then that goes into Kobe and Shaq, and it's a whole nother can of worms. But if a super team is described as a team where there's already one good player, two good players, another player joins them, then the first team would be that 08 Celtics squad.
I guess so, but talking about the Celtics, if you're saying that, then the first super team was way back in the 50s and 60s with that Celtics team with Bill Russell that ended up winning 11 championships. Bill Russell has 11 rings. He has 5 for his right hand, 5 for his left hand, and 1 for his right big toe. I mean, if you're saying that, then that's the first super team back in the day. So super teams have been around forever, I think. It's just been very, sort of brought more to the limelight with this Warriors team because solely of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, ooh. I know, the cupcake himself. Kevin Durant was an MVP. He was often recognized as one of the top 2 or 3 best players in the NBA, and then he went
Whoa.
What? That's so true. Kevin Durant.
I'll give him top 10. I'll give him top 10.
Kevin Durant is recognized as one of the top 2 or 3 best players in the league, and he went and joined a Warriors team that was already 73-9, coming off the best regular season that we've ever seen in any NBA season ever. And so that's that controversy there, and people saying that he's soft, people saying that he's a snake for doing that to Russell Westbrook and the Oklahoma City Thunder is why people, the masses and many analysts think that this Warriors team is the biggest super team and kind of the worst is because they don't like how it came to be, which I don't very much agree with. I don't think Kevin Durant should have joined the team that he just lost to in the Western Conference Finals, but the Warriors acquired Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson through the draft.
They drafted all of them.
They drafted all 3 of them, yeah.
That's homegrown talent.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like what the 07 Spurs did by drafting Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker.
Yeah, exactly. They drafted all those players, and they built them through the draft, which is the most honest and just best way, in my opinion, to build a championship team is through the draft, where you draft players who you see potential in, and you develop that potential into NBA stars that can get you a ring. And so
KD joining the Warriors, going back to the 07 comparisons, would be like if Kobe, after losing to those Spurs in the Western Conference playoffs, would join that Spurs team the following season.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same thing.
They
were both some of the best players in the world that time who just lost to a better team, and will forever be hated for it.
Yeah, you're completely right about that.
Warriors fans don't even like Kevin Durant. They don't cheer for KD.
Warriors fans don't?
They don't.
I don't know.
They're grateful that he gives them rings and clout.
Yeah.
But they don't cheer for him. They know what he did was wrong deep down.
Yeah, well, what he did was probably pretty wrong. But he was ring chasing, we all kind of know that, and he's gotten what he's desired. He's gotten 2 Finals MVPs in 2 years and 2 championships in 2 years. And that's all he really wanted. So he's done his thing. He's done what he wanted to do, and he's gotten his rings. But I've heard stories now that Kevin Durant would look to leave either in this offseason or the next offseason and join another pretty good team, but where he would be the face of the franchise as opposed to being 4 faces of the franchise with these Golden State Warriors. Do you think Kevin Durant would do that, Jake?
Well, I haven't heard any stories about that. I've been hearing stories like the Rockets owner said that they would give KD whatever he wants. And that's something interesting that I've been hearing about throughout the sports world is that Kevin Durant saying that he doesn't care about the championships anymore because he has them. So I don't really know what he's trying to say there. He's also saying that maybe I can retire in 5 years. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about all that?
I don't know. Kevin Durant's a weird dude, I think.
He is a weird dude.
Even stemming just from even just stemming from his actual basketball game, he's a 7-foot dude who plays on the outside. He dribbles like a guard and shoots like Steph Curry, and that carries over to his personal life. He like we said earlier, he joined the 73-9 Warriors team. He has burner Twitter accounts that he hypes himself up on, and I don't know. While he's a very very good basketball player, he's just a little fruity. I mean. For lack of a better term, he's just a little fruity, and so I could see where he would not care about the championships anymore. I feel like he'd be the kind of person to go to a bad team, to go to a Washington Wizards team, to go to a Orlando Magic team, maybe, hopefully, and
Orlando Magic, and be a hot take in the making,
and be the face of that franchise and try to get that franchise over the hump, sort of like LeBron does now with his Cavaliers. Maybe carry a team to a finals, even if you don't win that, just to build Kevin Durant's legacy. Or if he doesn't want to do that, he can stay on the Warriors and just continue to score at this blistering pace and just try to catch those all-time scorers like LeBron and like Kareem and try to get those scoring numbers for his all-time legacy. And, I mean, he's already a surefire Hall of Famer, but I think right now he's concerned with his individual and personal legacy. And so that leads me into a question for you, Jake.
Ooh.
Okay, so do you think Kevin Durant, when he retires, whether that be in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, will Kevin Durant retire as a top 10 player all time? Yes or no?
Top 10, just like top 10 greatest, straight up?
Top 10 greatest, best, however you want to put it. Will he retire as a top 10 player of all time when he's done?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I'll give him top 15.
Oh.
But I can't give him top 10. I just can't. Part of that's because of the snake decision.
Yeah.
Part of it's because, I mean, the best players of all time. You look at MJ and LeBron and Kobe. They're known for not only just like dominating the court through scoring, which Kevin Durant does beautifully, is one of the best in the league, but they also help make their teammates better, and they can pass, and they're good defensively. KD's all right defensively, but he's not like recognized as like being like a defensive player of the year 2 or 3 times like MJ was and such. So
Yeah.
I can't give him top 10 of all time.
Well, I think I might have to disagree with you there, Jake.
Hot take of him.
Hot take. Okay, my reasoning for that, Kevin Durant, he is an absolute freak of nature. He's the only player of his kind we've ever seen. And by that, I mean he's 7 feet tall. He's taller than DeMarcus Cousins, and he's taller than a lot of the centers in this league.
6'11". He's 6'11". He's right up there with him.
Yeah, he's like 7 feet tall, and he plays with the dribbling prowess and with the shot creatability and with the jump shot of a point guard, of Steph Curry. His jump shot and his mid range are rival that of Steph Curry, and you don't see that with a 7-foot guy at any level of the sport, especially in the NBA. And so I think a guy with that sort of athleticism is already in prime position to be one of the all-time greats. And then you take into account his accolades so far. He's won 2 championships with the Warriors, so that he's got 2 rings. He's won 2 Finals MVPs in those 2 championships, and he's also won a regular season MVP. And I'm sure he has many first-team All-Pros and All-NBAs and stuff of that nature and All-Star selections. And I just think when you watch him play, and I think as LeBron starts to fade a little bit in his 34 and 35 and 36 seasons, that Kevin Durant will overtake him as the best player in the league right now.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and
it's gonna be Anthony Davis.
It may be, but Kevin Durant is.
It's gonna be Anthony Davis.
It might be,
Anthony
but
Davis is a perennial defensive player of the year candidate.
Yeah.
He got triple double with the blocks.
Yeah, once. I'm just saying, Kevin Durant.
AD has the range that Kevin Durant does too, and he dunks. He tries for the rim, unlike Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant has the scoring prowess, and he has the smoothness, and when he plays, the team is better, and I think that if he continues at this pace for another 4 or 5 years, and he gets maybe 1 more ring, and 5 more All-Star selections, he will retire as a top 10 player all time in my eyes. That's just my opinion. So.
All right. You're really wrong. Dare I say that Kevin Durant is a glorified Melo?
Oh my, that.
I know it may be a little true, but hear me out. They're both just like pure scorers.
Yeah.
Who don't drive for the rim, don't play defense, don't make their teammates better.
Kevin Durant does play defense.
And thrive when they're the number 1 player on a bad team.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
They're both small forwards too.
That's you're
a
okay.
terrible thing
Okay. Stephen A. Listen to my thing. You just said that.
But skip.
You just said that Carmelo Anthony, like Kevin Durant, thrives as being the number 1 option on a bad team. Kevin Durant just won 2 titles as the number 1 scoring option and as the best player.
7-3-9 team on the Thunder.
Okay, and he was the best player on the 73-9 team, and he's been the best player on the Warriors for 2 years now, and
Steph Curry's been the best player on that team.
What are you saying?
One healthy.
That's not true. That's not true.
That's completely true.
That is not true. Steph Curry is a defensive liability. I love Steph Curry. I love that man. But just in the scope of this argument, Kevin Durant plays much better defense than Steph Curry. I think Kevin Durant averaged something like one or like 2 blocks this year a game, I think, or 1 block or something like that.
7-foot tall. He doesn't guard power forwards.
It doesn't matter. The Warriors play good team defense, and then Kevin Durant plays well. And then he's more consistent scorer than Steph Curry is. Hot take, whatever. He's won the 2 Finals MVPs. Steph Curry was on pace this year to win the Finals MVP until he dropped a stink bomb in Game 3, I think it was, when he scored 11 points in the Cavaliers. And in that game, Kevin Durant had his best game of his career, and he dropped like 43 on 20 shots or something like crazy like that. And Kevin Durant shot over 50% in this Finals. He plays better in the bigger moments. He's hit more clutch shots in the Finals than Steph Curry has. And he's been the best player on the best team in the league for 2 years now. And he's just raw. Kevin Durant is a great player, and he will go down as a top 10 player, like I said earlier.
All right, well, we're gonna move on. We can't talk all day about this.
I could talk all day.
I'm sure you could. You and your hot takes. But moving on to the impact of this final sweep, the most important question, of course, is where will LeBron go?
Actually, before we get to that, I have a question for you again.
Oh my.
I'm asking all these questions. So, LeBron went to his 8th straight finals, as we know, against these Warriors, and he got swept, as we know. So, in your opinion, would it have been better for LeBron's legacy after he's done playing, and looking back on it, would it have been better for LeBron's legacy for him to score like 50 points in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics in the conference finals, but for the Cavaliers to lose and not go to the finals and get swept by the Warriors? Would that have been better for LeBron's legacy?
It's better for him to have gone back to the finals because 8 straight finals is a feat that nobody can really claim. And it would have been bad for him to lose to that Boston Celtics team because they were without 2 top 25 players in the league in Kyrie and Hayward. And it would have been unacceptable for him to lose to that team of second-year players and Al Horford. Okay.
Well, you love Al Horford, one.
I do love Big Al.
Secondly, I disagree with you again. The Cavaliers were not even supposed to get past the Toronto Raptors this year in the playoffs. They were supposed to lose.
I said from the beginning of the playoffs that anybody who thought the Raptors were going to win the East was delusional, and that was completely correct.
Well, we weren't even podcasting then, so it doesn't matter.
Alright, whatever.
Okay, so I'm just saying, LeBron, in my opinion, everyone always brings up the finals record when talking about the MJ-LeBron debate. MJ was 6-0 in the finals, I think. And LeBron is now...
You know.
I know. And LeBron is now 3-6 with this sweep. And he's gotten swept twice. And so I think a lot of the naysayers for LeBron's legacy will always point back to that Super Bowl record. Or not Super Bowl. Finals record. And say he lost 6 times in the finals. And it would have been better, in my opinion, for him to just play the game of his life in Game 7 against the Celtics, but lose and not have to go to that finals to put that another loss in the column for his all-time record. And the narrative would have been, LeBron played his heart out. He has no help. He was the best player on the court by far in that game, but he had no help, and it wasn't his fault that they lost. That would have been a lot better for LeBron James's overall legacy, and it would have made him look better than for him to carry this team to the finals, I think. In my opinion.
Going to 8 straight is better because of that aforementioned 07 sweep where people just say, yeah, he had a bad team, just like 07. And he's playing against a much better opponent, just like 07. So remarkable. The thing that helps cement his legacy is that he took his team to the finals in the first place at age 33, playing God knows how many minutes this season.
Okay, I guess, I don't know. Whatever. But this brings us to talking about LeBron and all his legacy. And LeBron's getting into his last legs of his career, even though he doesn't show it much. He's getting into the last 5 or 6 years of his career. So now everyone knows he's a free agent right now. So Jake, where do you think LeBron is going to be playing next season and why?
Well, this isn't going to impact my answer, but like I said, Bronny James, LeBron's son, is committed to play basketball at a high school in LA next year.
Okay.
So I know you're a proponent of Bron in purple and yellow, but I think that he's going to the Spurs.
The Spurs.
Because there have been a bunch of reports recently that Kawhi is like back on good terms with the Spurs and that he's going to get a contract extension, and that there's been other reports saying that Pop wants to meet with LeBron like face to face before the draft. And I mean, LeBron loves Pop. He called him the greatest of all time. The San Antonio Spurs organization would be great for him because they know how to live out players' careers. Look at LaMarcus Aldridge having a career year at 32. Look at Pau Gasol doing anything at 38. Look at Manu Ginobili scoring 10 points a game at age 40. So, the Spurs would be a great place for LeBron to live out the twilight of his career while he still has some kick but doesn't want to have to carry all the lower team because they have the aforementioned Kawhi Leonard in his prime at 26. And best of all, he doesn't face the Warriors in the finals. He just knocks them out, squeaks out a 7-game win in the Western Conference Series, and then goes on to beat Boston or Philly.
Okay. Oh God. That was bad. Okay. I see your point, and that makes sense. However, there's a but. I think if it was my choice, I would have LeBron go to my Orlando Magic. But, and I mean, I say that jokingly, but it could be a serious candidate for him to go there. And I know
this is a boiling hot take.
I'll just speak quickly on this. The Magic have more cap space than most teams in the league right now. And if they could draw in, right now they have, their best player is Aaron Gordon, who's 22, 23. He's a young guy, he's athletic, he can shoot the ball a little bit.
And he's a restricted free agent.
Whatever.
There's been rumors they could get a max offer from teams like the Pacers or my Brooklyn Nets.
Okay, if those teams offer Aaron Gordon, I know Aaron Gordon's good, but he's not max contract worthy. And so if the Magic keep Aaron Gordon and they can get LeBron and maybe one other fringe all-star or whatever to there, they'd be in the Eastern Conference, and it'd be an easy way for LeBron to get there. But I don't know if that front office could manage that. So I'm not getting my hopes up. But where I think LeBron really truly should go is, as you said, the Los Angeles Lakers. You mentioned earlier his son Bronny is committed to play high school basketball in Los Angeles, and
LeBron has mentioned that a lot of his decision will do with his family.
His family. So if his family's trying to go to LA, then he's likely to go there. I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that Paul George is going to end up signing with the Los Angeles Lakers in this offseason. And LeBron would not go there unless there's...
Whoa, hold on right there.
What?
I have a hot take right now.
Okay, give it to me.
The Lakers? First of all, Paul George and my boy, my king, D'Angelo Russell, share the same agent. And when Paul George said he wanted to play with the Lakers last offseason, reports have been speculating that it was because he wanted to play with D'Angelo. So, it sounds like Paul George may be wearing the Brooklyn next season. But, if the Lakers do sign him, continue.
Yeah. Okay, if the Lakers end up signing Paul George, which I think is very likely, he said that he wants to go there. He grew up there, I believe. He's a hometown boy. And he is very likely to go there and sign with them. So then, there'd already be one other all-star there that LeBron could go and join with the Lakers. And if LeBron goes and signs with the LA Lakers, their starting five next year would be LeBron James, Paul George, Lonzo Ball, probably Brandon Ingram and Brook Lopez, with Kyle Kuzma coming off the bench, and maybe Julius Randle. I don't know if they've traded.
Brook Lopez is an unrestricted free agent, and Julius Randle is a restricted free agent. So maybe if they get Braun and Paul George, they could. I don't know if they had enough. I don't know if they would have enough cap space to maybe go after Boogie, but they could possibly do that. They could go after. Or maybe if they don't get Paul George, just sign Boogie.
Yeah.
And put Kuzma back in the starting five.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of young assets, and they have the potential, and they have a lot of cap space, I do believe, and probably the biggest market in sports in the NBA. And so they have the potential to sign several big names. There have been rumors before that what's his face, Kawhi Leonard was thinking about signing with the Los Angeles Lakers, and even if that does not come to fruition, then they could still sign Paul George, as I said earlier, and LeBron James. So I do think LeBron will end up in Los Angeles with Paul George, Alonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, and Brook Lopez, and I think they will be a top 2 or 3 seed in the Western Conference next year, and will definitely contend with either the Celtics or the Sixers for that title, for the NBA Finals championship next year.
Here's another third option, also coincidentally in the Western Conference, the Houston Rockets.
No.
Why not? Let me hear the counterclaim first.
Okay, the counterclaim to that is, I don't think... Okay, the counterclaim to that, I do think that the Houston Rockets could sign LeBron James. That's very possible. They have a good front office, and they could figure out a way to either trade or sign or do whatever that needs to get LeBron in Houston. However, I think the reason why the Rockets were so good this year and why they took the Golden State Warriors, the best team in the league, to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals is the array of talent that they had on that team. Not just their 2 superstars in Chris Paul and James Harden. I watched every game of that series, and on a night-to-night basis, you saw just many different guys stepping up for the Rockets and making plays for them. Guys such as PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, Trevor Ariza, Clint Capella, and of course James Harden and Chris Paul. And so they were just a lot of weapons that they had, a lot of role players who filled their role beautifully. And is why they gave the Golden State Warriors so much trouble, is that their role players thrived in that system, and they did what they were supposed to do, and they gave the support to all that. And so I think with signing LeBron James in that, you lose that array of weapons that you would need to take to either trade or to sign him, because you either lose the players to get him, or you lose the money to sign the other players once you have him. And so even if they do get LeBron James, I don't think a team led by LeBron James, Chris Paul, and James Harden would, with almost no supporting cast, could end up beating the Golden State Warriors with their 4 All-Stars and JaVale McGee and Nick Young and Andre Iguodala. I just don't think it'd be possible. So while it may be very possible that he may go there, it would not work in my opinion. They could not beat the Golden State Warriors in a 7-game series, which is the whole reason LeBron is leaving Cleveland, is to try to beat that team and win a championship.
Well, I definitely think Chris Paul, James Harden, LeBron James team could be the Warriors in 7. But the key is to, as you said, how they work around the role players, how they work around bringing back the role players and getting that extra support, because like all those guys like Tucker and Gordon and Ariza, they were all just 3-and-D guys straight up. So, and that's why the Rockets shot the most threes and made the most threes in the league this year, second to my Brooklyn Nets, but that's besides the point. But the Rockets are after trading for Chris Paul last year, they're in such a bad cap space situation. They have almost no room, and they have to re-sign. They already have to re-sign Chris Paul and or Clint Capella this year. So the only way they could do it is if they have Braun sign and trade like Chris Paul did last year with the Clippers. But to do that, first to clear space for that, they have to remove Ryan Anderson's $20 million a year contract, and to do that, they have to give up 2 first-rounders probably.
Yeah.
But then to do the sign and trade for LeBron for the Cavs, I don't know if they'd have enough assets to do that in the first place. But Daryl Morey is one of the best GMs in the league, and he worked cap space magic last season to get Chris Paul, and I'm sure that if LeBron wants it, then Daryl Morey will make it happen. Because LeBron and Chris Paul, they're banana boat boys. They're like best friends.
They're big buddies. Okay, I hear your point about the Rockets, and I was just, pondering over here, listening to you. And I just thought of another option that I don't know why LeBron James wouldn't go to this team, and they could be very good. And that team is the Detroit Pistons.
Whoa!
Hot take alert.
Wow.
The Detroit Pistons, they just signed Dwayne Casey, the former coach of the Toronto Raptors, who led them to the the number one overall seed in the Eastern Conference. They signed him to a 5-year deal. So now the Pistons team of Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin is being coached by Dwayne Casey, who is a top half of the league at worst coach. And
He's
so
a finalist for Coach of the Year. He's smart.
He's smart. He's a good dude. And if they added LeBron James, that team would be LeBron, Andre Drummond, and Blake Griffin and Reggie Jackson, and it would be a solid contender in the Eastern Conference. It would have a much easier Eastern Conference, much easier time to get to the finals than in the Western Conference. And I think that a LeBron James, Blake Griffin, or a LeBron James, Andre Drummond pick and roll is almost unguardable. There's nobody that in the league that could guard that with LeBron size and either Griffin or Drummond size, and that'd be a very tough team, a very hard team to stop. And LeBron wouldn't have to do all the scoring, as Reggie Jackson and Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond are all proven NBA players. Drummond and Blake Griffin being all-stars, and Reggie Jackson being a very solid starting point guard in the league. And so I think with Casey's coaching and with that roster, if LeBron goes to Detroit, it could be a very solid team that could be dangerous in the Eastern Conference next year. What do you think about that?
I like that. I also think that LeBron wants to leave the East. So that's why I mentioned the Spurs, Rockets, you mentioned the Lakers, and also the Pistons are also in a horrible cap space situation because Blake Griffin is one of the biggest contracts in the league. And they gave up first-round picks and other good players for him, and they took on more money. They gave away expiring contracts. So I don't know if whoever's leading the Pistons now would be able to work around that.
Yeah, that would be a hard thing to do, but if by some miracle they can get him on that team, that would be a very dangerous team. Don't you agree?
It would depend on the development of Andre Drummond because he's still only 24, 25. He doesn't have a very polished game. And it would depend on the health of Reggie Jackson and Blake Griffin.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but it would definitely be a step up from the Cleveland Cavaliers, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
All right, so also about LeBron James, do you think LeBron's going to do another big TV build-up and thing, a big old long drawn-out process about LeBron's Decision 3, a big TV special and whatever? You think LeBron has that in him?
I don't know if he necessarily wants to, but I think the media will kind of force him to do something like that just because it's LeBron James, you know?
Yeah, I feel you. LeBron James is no doubt the best player in the league still, and him being a free agent in this offseason is going to be very interesting, as well as many other All-Stars are going to be free agents, and yeah, it should be interesting. And before we get off this
NBA... It'll be a great offseason.
Yeah, before we get off this NBA thing, I forgot, I have a question for you again.
Oh my.
Is there any way the Cavaliers can get LeBron to stay in Cleveland if they bring in like a DeAndre Jordan or a Boogie Cousins or anything like that to pair with LeBron and Kevin Love? Is there any way to get him to stay in Cleveland?
Well, here we go. We're going to talk about cap space because the Cavs are one of the worst cap space situations in the league. With Tristan Thompson due for $20 million over 2 years, and Corver and JR both making like $15 million. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the only assets they have are Kevin Love and my Nets' 8th overall pick. So
it'd be difficult.
I mean, maybe if they want to package Kevin Love and they want to package Kevin Love in the 8th overall pick
for Chris Paul,
for a really good player
for Chris Paul.
Maybe.
But
I don't know if the Rockets would do that though.
I don't know,
I
but
think they value Chris Paul more than like Kevin Love and Mikal Bridges or whoever they draft.
Yeah,
maybe. You know who might take that trade?
Who?
The Timberwolves.
For who? For Cat?
I don't know.
For who?
Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler's old.
I know. He'd be perfect with Ron.
I don't know. I think if
they just start Tristan Thompson again, like the good old days.
I think if that trade with that package with Kevin Love and the 8th overall pick were to happen, they would need to get a playmaker.
Top 15 player.
Well, obviously, but they need to get a playmaker. And the reason I say Chris Paul is because he can facilitate an offense to where LeBron can take a break on offense and can play more the defense that we have come to know LeBron as being able to play. This year he played a lot worse defense than we're accustomed to because he was having to put in so much on the offensive end. And with a guy like Chris Paul,
energy in offensive end.
With a guy like Chris Paul, it would be easier for LeBron to take a break on the offensive end and let Chris Paul run the offense for several possessions and facilitate passes and pick and rolls and whatever, so that LeBron can stand and be a shooter like all those other players usually do. So that's why I say Chris Paul.
Back. So we need Kyrie back.
Yeah, basically.
LeBron needs a good point guard to succeed.
That's true.
A good ball dominant guard. As we saw with D Wade in Miami, where he won with Kyrie.
True.
So who could they get? I'm trying to think. The Trailblazers. The Trailblazers were talking about trading either Dame Dollar or CJ.
I would rather
I think they might take that because they might not like Jusuf Nurkic that much.
I would rather have. So you're saying that the Trailblazers would trade Dame and Nurkic for Kevin Love and the 8th overall pick?
Nurkic is a restricted free agent, so they just do Dame for it, and they put Love back at center.
Maybe. We'll have to see what happens, but I do think LeBron's heart is in Cleveland, and if everything was the way he wanted, I think he'd rather stay in Cleveland than go somewhere else. If that meant he would still have a chance at a championship, but it's looking grim right now for them. But we'll just have to wait and see this offseason.
Really correct.
All right. Well, now getting toward the end of that discussion, we can move on to our weekly Jaguar Corner. And Duval. What are we talking about today, Jake?
Well, OTAs have wrapped up for the Jags.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey revealed that he skipped OTAs not because he was just like
sleeping.
I don't know, memeing on the team, but it was because he was doing personal training with his pops in Nashville to become the consensual number one quarterback in the league, I guess. Because right now he's like top 2, top 3. He wants to be the number 1. And I can't wait for him to become the best cornerback in the league next year.
Well, he already is the best cornerback in the league, and I follow him on Instagram, so I see his workout videos, and he's always sweating and being a big man and just flaunting around like Jalen Ramsey does. And so I'm perfectly okay with him missing OTAs as long as he's putting in that work elsewhere, and it's fine by me if he performs as he has been this coming up season. So, yeah, it's okay with me.
Another report said it was an interview with Doug Marrone during OTAs or whatnot, and he said that he doesn't want to lead the NFL in rushing again. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it doesn't mean exactly what he's saying. You know, of course, he would love to lead the league in rushing. Any team would love to lead the league in rushing for any season, because when a team runs well, they're going to be a winning team. We've seen that in Dallas. We've seen that in Jacksonville this past year. It just works. But what I think he means by saying that is that he wants this to be a balanced enough team that we don't have to rely on the run so much as we did last year, and that we can rely on Bortles and this new revamped wide receiver core to make teams more nervous about our pass and more having to defend that, as opposed to just putting 8 guys in the box and stuffing Leonard Fournette. And so, obviously, it'd be nice to lead the league in rushing, but what he's saying is he wants us not to have to rely on it so much, and he thinks that Blake Bortles is at a point in his career where he can lead this team to have a deadly enough passing attack that teams have to respect it and have to guard and have to game plan for that, as opposed to just Leonard Fournette.
Correct. It's showing more trust in Bortles and his ability to control and know the offense, because, as I believe we mentioned before on the podcast, this is the first time Bortles will have 2 years in a row with the same offensive coordinator. So he's going to be more familiar with the game. And last year, when the Allens, Robinson, and Hearns got hurt early in the year,
yeah,
that was when the Jags. I feel like the Jags, coaching kind of just panicked. Because like they plan to run the offense through those two guys and hand off to Fournette a little bit. But then after those two guys got injured, and they didn't really trust the wide receiver core, they decided to just say, all right, we'll just give it to Fournette a bunch, maybe pass a little bit. But now that Keelan Cole and Dede Westbrook have broken out, and Marquise Lee has been okay, and of course with the addition of DJ Chark and Dante Moncrief, and they've had a full offseason with all these guys. They also added my former Jet, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, in free agency, who's a pass-catching tight end. Not a good blocker, but a pass-catching tight end. That Marone and Hackett are showing trust in Bortles, and that they want to pass more because the NFL these days is a passing league, and they can't wait to get onto the field and see the bald Bortles throw some touchdown downs.
Yeah, and sort of building off that Doug Marone quote, Black and Teal's top 10 running backs were just released, and the top 10 goes like this. They have Todd Gurley at number 1, Le'Veon Bell at number 2, David Johnson at 3, followed by LaShawn McCoy, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Devontae Freeman, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, and Jordan Howard. So, what are your thoughts on that list, Jake?
Well, first of all, what the hell is Kareem Hunt?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
It says,
And,
it says just missed. Mark Ingram, Kareem Hunt, Lamar Miller, Dalvin Cook, and Carlos Hyde.
Well, I know you're going to mainly be asking this because of Fournette's number 8 position on the list.
Yes.
And, I'm sorry, could you reread the list for me?
Number 1 is Todd Gurley, followed by Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, LaShawn McCoy, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Devontae Freeman, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, and Jordan Howard.
I'd move Fournette up one position. I'd put him 7th over Freeman.
Yeah.
Because Fournette was targeted a lot. Like he ran up the middle a bunch this year and was widely successful. He got over 1,000 rushing yards even though he missed 3 games.
Yeah.
And I'd probably mix up the top 3. I'd probably put Gurley, then Johnson, then Bell, just because David Johnson wants to and can get, and probably will get 2,000 yards from scrimmage this season.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But Fournette is limited in that he's only 7th. Well, 7th in my book because he can catch the ball a lot. And as I said before, the league right now is pass dominant, and Gurley and Bell and Johnson all are wide receivers who could run too. And Fournette, although he has a wonderful spin move, he needs to develop his catching abilities, and he needs to not use his brute physicality as much, like his spins and such, when running, because he has nagging ankle injuries ever since he was in college.
Yeah.
So it's mainly his inability to catch consistently, and his injury problems that, coupled with his aggressive running, just don't really add up to a top 5, top 3 running back in the league.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think what limited Leonard Fournette in this past season and why he's not higher on the list is, as we said earlier with Marone's quote, is the Jaguars' lack of a passing offense. I mean, every running back on this list ahead of him, aside for maybe LaShawn McCoy and David Johnson, had a much better passing attack than the Jaguars did in this past year. And so a lot of teams did not respect our passing at all, and so they stacked the box. Fournette often was running against 8- and 9-man fronts, and so he was stuffed a lot later on in the season where he got a lot less yards, and as you said, he had he had a hurt ankle, nagging ankle injuries. He missed parts of 3 games, and so yeah, I think this upcoming year he'll have hopefully, with barring huge injuries, and hopefully that doesn't happen, he will have a much more balanced team like these other guys at the top of the list. And he'll be able to run against more friendly fronts and more friendly defenses in a way that he can expose them more and get more more runs where he's in the outside and just playing easier defenses is what I'm trying to say. And he can get more yards per carry, if not more carries this year. So he should be high on the list, on the same list next year, in my opinion. So we'll see.
I think it's less of playing easier defenses, but being in a better offense as a result of a revamped wide receiver room. The addition of the all-pro guard Andrew Norwell should help his running game more because he won't be relied on so much. Fournette's also slimmed down a bunch this offseason, as shown in the OTAs. And hopefully Nathaniel Hackett has been working along with him on his pass-catching abilities, which can vault him into the top 5, top 3 running backs in the league next year.
Yeah, I think the future is bright for Fournette in this next season, and even more so the whole Jaguars team. We're primed and ready for a really deep run in the playoffs this year, and hopefully a Super Bowl ring. Hopefully. So yeah, that about wraps it up for this week's discussion. I think it was fun talking to you, Jake. Thanks for podcasting with me, and thank you all for listening. We'll see y'all next week for more discussion on the week's sports, the NBA, the NHL, the whatever, all the stuff. So we'll just see y'all next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.